It is 5:32. If they could call the regular board meeting of the Amherst Board of Education together by standing and pledging the flag first, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Engel?
Present.
Mrs. Gillis?
Here.
Dr. Messer?
Here.
Mrs. Wacholz? Mr. Zappa?
Here. I take a motion for item 4, recommendation to adopt the agenda as presented, including the addendums.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or comments? Hearing or seeing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gillis?
Aye.
Mr. Zappa?
Aye.
Dr. Messer?
Aye.
Mrs. Wacholz? Mr. Engel?
Good news reports tonight. Mr. Casey Wolf.
School board, thanks so much for having me. I'm going to stand over here. I've brought a few of my friends here today, which means we had a good winter, right? That's why they're all here. I'd like to first call Ethan Belak forward, please. Ethan is a 4-time state qualifier as a diver. He also qualified for swimming state 1 year. He's a school record holder in the 11 dive. He set that this year at the OHSA district meet at Bowling Green. That actually qualified him to his 4th state meet. He's a school record holder in the 6 dive. He did that this year at a dual meet with Olmsted Falls, North Olmsted Rec. Both of those records were like 20 years old that he broke. He's a 2-time Southwestern Conference diving champion. He did it as a junior and a senior. And he also won the 50 freestyle this year. So I'd like to congratulate Ethan on a tremendous career, and we're sure going to miss having him around. But Ethan Belak. If I can have our boys bowling team next, please. This group of young men, they finished, they won the North Shore Bowling Conference for the 3rd straight year. Had a tremendous season. I believe the record was 19-2. Is that accurate? Correct. JP Gregory, who's also within this group, wave your hand, JP. JP qualified for state and competed this past Friday. He finished 3rd at the OHSA districts as an individual. He shot a 5-10 series down in Columbus. So these young men had a great season, and congratulations to JP on making it to state. So, if I could bring our girls bowling team up front, please. Game 8. This group of young ladies is currently in a 50-match winning streak. They won the North Shore Bowling Conference for the 3rd straight year, Southwestern Conference Championship for the 2nd straight year, and they qualified for the OHSA state tournament this past weekend where they finished 9th overall, just missing the championship round by 4 pins. So tremendous season for these young ladies. Also at the state meet, Allison Taylor finished in the top 8. She was 2nd team All-Ohio. Allison, can you get a wave? And as many of you have seen, Michaela Velasquez finished a tremendous career. She's a 2-time state qualifier. She's a 4-time Southwestern Conference girls bowling MVP, and I find it hard to believe that in any other sport across the Southwestern Conference that anybody has been a 4-time conference MVP. So that's obviously a tremendous accomplishment. She's in the OHSA record books. She met the requirements. She's in there 7 times. Well, let's actually make that 8. She's your 2021-22 OHSA Girls Bowling Division I state champion. Ladies, congratulations on a great season. Thanks so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Will the cheerleaders please come forward? Sorry, that was loud. I shouldn't apologize. They had a great year. They all did. Hi, Kylie. So back in November, this group of young ladies combined to win the Southwestern Conference Championship. As I talked about yesterday at our end of season awards, the SWC changed their format a couple of years ago to combines game day, which is your traditional sideline cheer, with competition cheer. You get the combined score of those two performances. That's how they determine a conference champion. And our combined score between the two made us the conference champion. So congratulations to the young ladies who helped us win that conference championship. Then, yes, please. Then in February, our comp team went to Anthony Wayne High School to compete in the regional to attempt to qualify for the state meet, for the OASSA state meet. And they did that, and they won our first, and on February 27th down at Pickerington North High School, they won our first OASSA state championship for the Division II non-building small division championship. So congratulations to those young ladies. If I could have the competition team stay here, and if Michaela would come back up here, I would like to bring Ohio Representative Joe Miller in forward. He has a special presentation for Michaela and our comp team.
So game dates.
I'll stand over here.
Up here?
Well, thank you to the board and those here for coming to such a great, exciting night. You know, board meetings, they're so exciting, right? Of course. Actually, this is what makes it exciting to be a board member, to be a state rep, to be an alumni of Marion L. Steele. And so I get to come back here with goosebumps and excitement to see success and to go ahead and acknowledge that success. And before we get to the state champs, the elitist of this, I do want to say to our diver, to the bowlers, and to everybody that has been acknowledged here, that you have achieved something that has made not only yourself and your parents, your family, and of course your community proud. You've made many of us that call ourselves alumni very proud of your accomplishments. So with that, I come bearing no gifts. I have a lot of them though, but to get the really big gift, and it's really not a gift, it's an honor, because it was not gifted on you, it was earned by you. And that is a resolution from the state of Ohio. Those don't come cheap, they don't come often, but boy, they're exciting when I get to do that. You know, that's part of my job, which is a little easier and more exciting, and I don't get yelled at as much for it. So it's good when I can go ahead and at the State House, stand up on the floor, and have the opportunity to acknowledge you for being a state champ in cheerleading and in bowling. And so if you would be so willing, so honored would I be if you came down to Columbus, to the State House on March 30th and received your resolution on the state floor, take pictures, you can go up in the balcony. I heard Mr. Wolf here will buy lunch for you. I've been putting him on the bus there. But I do want to offer that, and we will acknowledge you. We'll give you an opportunity to experience that. You'll be up in the gallery when the entire General Assembly meets, on the House side at least. And I would be honored and proud to acknowledge you then. And just a side note, little did I know at 11 years old
when I was bowling alongside Michaela's mother for fun on Saturday mornings, would she be producing a state champion bowler? We just went there to have fun. Lisa, you remember that. It was good times by all of us kids. And just to see this circle is really, really neat. So Michaela and Sheer, congratulations. And to everybody else that succeeded this winter sport, congratulations as well. And we'll have all kinds of things to be handing out over the next month, it looks like. So congrats again. Sure. I'm tall, I'll stand behind y'all. Like, I didn't know if there was a height requirement on cheer, but starting to wonder.
Ready? 1, 2.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you very much.
Oh my God.
Thanks, John. Good job.
Oh, yeah, you can yeah, Amherst Board of Education.
Are you sure you can talk? Are you okay?
I am now, as long as you come. This is kind of an impromptu because we had an activity this morning at Untitled Community College, and Mr. Teller thought this would be a good time to provide just a quick update. So sure, so about 2 months ago, we met with the school superintendents in the SWC and all the principals at the junior high and the high school. And we just kind of thought we could do a better job of culture, of sensitivity, and understanding other teams when we go to competitions. Basically, the mission and the vision of this is to recognize people have a lot more in common with you than you think. And so often we go to other games and they have the other jersey on, they're the enemy, whatever. And as a group, as a conference, we were tasked with finding 10 individuals from each school in the SWC. So we went today to, we're calling it the SWC Summit. Mr. Gibson in the junior high will go a week after spring break. And what they asked was, bring 10 individuals, kind of a melting pot, give a good representation. We don't want to have, 10, the top 10 in the class. We don't want to have your best athletes. We don't want to just have band or theater, whatever it might be. So it kind of validated what we did. I asked our school counselors, I asked Ashley and Nick, I said, let's think of students that really are individualized and really not just one particular organization. And I brought them all down. And mission accomplished because I had them all meet in the conference room. When I walked in, they said, Mr. Tellier, I have nothing in common with anybody else here. I don't know their name. I know you're in theater. I know you're in band. I know you're really smart. I know you're on the football team. I'm transgender. I mean, they kind of went around the whole room. They were like, we have nothing in common with these people. And I thought, yes, mission accomplished. That's exactly what they were asking us to do. So we went there. They broke into groups. And I think it was good. Mr. Sayer and all the superintendents were there. Every single principal from the SWC was there. So really when you see your leaders and people riding on the bus with you, going to LCC, we spent the whole day in breakout sessions talking about cultural sensitivity, talking about acceptance, talking about things you have in common with others. And then we met with them after when we came back and just kind of, they have some ideas and we're going to keep working with them on things they'd like to see here at Steel. So it was kind of a really cool, that was really the mission there, be the change you want to see. And that was kind of all the breakout sessions really kind of revolved around, if not you, then who. So really a cool day. We still have lots of work to do, but we had great conversations, and I think it's a good step in the right direction. And that took place just a few hours ago. So it was a real good day. Day well spent.
Wonderful day. It was from we talked, and it was just wonderful. And to sit and talk with our students after they finish the breakout sessions, we just have great kids here. It's very insightful, and the perspectives that they provide. It was just a very enjoyable day all the way around. So thank you again for your leadership with that, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a good news report? For the public, no one has signed up to speak to the public this evening, so we would move right on down the agenda to the treasurer's report.
Good
Madam
evening.
Treasurer?
Good evening, everybody. This spreadsheet in front of you, you want to take a look at it. Want to draw your attention to a couple of things. In the column February 22, which is your fiscal 22 month-to-date column, you see a dollar amount of $4,809,000. That is the amount of advances we received in February for real estate. And our advances so far are greater than the advances we received in February of last year. And then go over to the rightmost column where you see $12,916,000. That's your fiscal 22 fiscal year to date column. We're running about $1.8 million with our advances ahead of last year's advances. I will just caution you. We never know what our advances are going to be. We always know we'll receive 2 advances, 1 settlement. Our advances are usually February. Our settlement is usually early March. We have received our settlement, which is not reflected on here because we received it in the month of March. When you look at the total settlement as from compared to last year at this time, which would have been the first half of 2020 real estate settlement, we're running about $150,000 ahead of what we were last year. So it just goes to show, you can see this February of 2020, our advances were $5,006,000, and then they were $3,003,000, and then they were $4,008,000. So it just fluctuates quite a bit. What I will say is that we are running a surplus so far this year of almost $2.8 million. Again, that adjusts every month. So we are at a high cash right now. As a matter of fact, like right now, today, we are at our high cash for the year. And then it will continue to deplete. And then it will get our cash balances, other than investments, will be pretty low then before we start receiving settlements in July, advances in July. As far as expenditures are concerned, we are running ahead of last year by just over $500,000. And then we are adding cash balance, as I said. The single biggest reason why we were able to build cash balances, I would say this year, is simply because of the ESSER and the ARP revenue streams that we've been receiving. I think I've said this before, we received $163,000 for CRF, then $270,000 for ESSER, then 1.8 almost million for ESSER 2. Now we're at $2,662,000 for ESSER 3. So we are receiving huge sums of federal monies, and there are no supplanting prohibitions on these federal monies like there typically are. And what I mean by that is we can take general fund expenditures and move them over to the grant. Under normal circumstances, you cannot do that with federal revenue streams. So there is the snapshot of the district's revenue and finances, both from a month to date, fiscal year to date, for this year and the prior 2 years. That is it.
Do you have any questions?
I have a question about EA.
We're not there
We're not
yet.
there yet. We have to wait till we have a motion to approve those recommendations. This is just a report. Okay.
No problem.
Do you have any questions on the report? Anyone have any questions on the report? Okay. Do you have recommendations for us this evening?
I do, sir. The norm, you see board meeting minutes from the regular board meeting of February 14th. Item B are the financial that you will see from February 2022. Item C is a revision to appropriations for the prom account. I believe we moved it up like $4,488. And that's just prom needs for this spring. This is a student activity account, so you can be assured that there's enough cash and revenue coming in to cover any expenditures and encumbrances that we have. We have a fund-to-fund transfer here for the Comets Live Video Club. This is the program that you saw Mr. Cogdell present on a year and a half ago, I'm thinking. They are doing some really great work. He and a lot of our AJH students are covering many, many events and being able to stream them so that people can see them that otherwise couldn't make it to the event. So anyways, this transfer of $22,000 represents the cash needs of the Comets Live Video Club for the remainder of this school year. Mr. Sayers and Doug have spoken multiple times, and it is intended that this program will be self-supporting. It will have its own cash flow. It just there are a lot of equipment needs, things to get it up off the ground. So this is a really great program for the district, and it's giving the kids some really great experience. So I ask you to approve that $22,000 fund transfer. Item E are the donations that have come into the district in the last month, and that is it.
We have a motion to accept recommendation items. So,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Questions and comments? Morgan?
Yes. Did all those names get corrected in the minutes from last month?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. You said self-sustaining. Is that like a boosters for them or something like?
No, it is a 300 fund, which is a district-managed student activity account. The difference between a 200 fund like the prom that has an item here is that's really a student-managed organization, where a 300 fund like our athletics and cheerleading and band, those are district-managed organizations. So the revenue that comes into the 300 into the Comets Live is receipted to the Comets Live account, and then it has its own expenditures, and including paying the students for their work on these streaming projects. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
I would need a motion.
Oh, did we make a motion?
We did do that?
We did. We
I
did.
don't-
We had Mark and Teresa. Before we had discussion, we had a motion.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Would we repeat it, please?
I'll make the motion.
You made the motion, and Gillis
And we
seconded.
had discussion.
I am so sorry.
Is there any further discussion?
I'm very intense right now, I suppose.
There you go. All right. Can we call the roll?
Sir. Mr. Zappa.
Aye.
Mrs. Gillis.
Hi.
Dr. Messer.
Aye.
Mrs. Wackel. Mr. Engel.
I have a question for you, but not pertaining to anything that you reported about.
Yes.
The question is, I know that on an annualized basis, we always make sure that the booster clubs and the organizations, the PTOs, PTAs, all have filed all of their paperwork to be legitimately recognized by the board. And has that all occurred? Because I don't recall hearing about that. Maybe we did back in the fall, and I just don't remember.
It happens in the fall, in the September, October timeframe. Yes.
All right, so we're all good with that?
Yes,
Before
sir.
the school year ends and everybody's
Yes.
good? Okay, great. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Yes.
Okay. Superintendent's report, Mr. Sayers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Engel. Just 3 items. First item, we had our weekly meeting with the health commissioner on Friday, and all of the county superintendents agreed that it was the best meeting that we've had in the last 2 years. The health commissioner reported and essentially gave all the superintendents the go-ahead to kind of go back to the public health procedures that were in place pre-COVID, which was certainly wonderful news for all of us as a part of that meeting. So we are now back to the normal public health procedures of hand washing and making sure we emphasize with our students to cover their mouth when they sneeze or cough, and staying home when they're sick, those kinds of things, which we should practice all the time. So that was certainly great news and good news for our kids, our staff, our community. Again, I just want to take this opportunity to thank our students, our staff, and community, because it has really been a team effort working through these last 2 years, and it appears as though we've made it. And I think Mike and I have talked, Sarah, that I think we're a stronger school district as a result of what we've had to do and creative ways to do things and adapting and adjusting and changing the way we look at things. So again, what we try to do, we try to take adversity and learn something from that, and that's certainly what we've been doing these last 2 years. A lot of adversity, that's for sure. The other item, just a quick reminder, tomorrow night is our second Family First night of the school year. As you recall, about 5 or 6 years ago, this is a new initiative, and to try to set aside 2 evenings during the school year where we don't have any practices, any games, any concerts, any meetings of any kind, and just to give families an opportunity to spend time together. And it's really been well received. And so tomorrow is that night. We try to work it out so it's November between the fall and winter sports season, and then again in March between the winter and spring sports seasons, and try to schedule it around our concerts and those kinds of things. So again, just a neat evening. And it's interesting because every year people will see pictures on Twitter from other school districts, and we'll occasionally get an email saying, "This is the neatest thing, and is there any way we can do this as a county or as a league?" And of course, that's very difficult to do, to coordinate that many schedules. But it is neat to see, when you have other school districts and people from other areas, recognize that this is kind of a neat thing that we're doing here in Amherst. So again, that's tomorrow night. And then the last thing I just wanted to provide, just a quick update. We have an agenda item here later on in the educational service recommendations regarding our rec fund. And as I say, just a quick update. It's my understanding that the leaders of the various youth organizations had a meeting last week, and one of the things that came out of that meeting was a desire to have another meeting, and they have been gracious enough to invite me to attend that meeting, and I believe it is scheduled for March the 30th. And so we're going to meet. There's a real interest of our youth groups, our youth organizations, baseball, softball in the summer, we have sandstone theater, we have swimming, we have youth football, we have soccer, and there's a real desire to start working more collaboratively within the groups, and then working collaboratively with the school district. And so we're looking forward to that meeting. I think it's really going to be the beginning of some new partnerships and providing good opportunities, great opportunities for our kids here in Amherst, not just through school programs, but also through our youth programs that are in place as well throughout the summer and those extra times. So I just wanted to provide the board with those updates, and that completes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? No questions. Mr. Mike Mulna.
Two just brief updates. One is last month's board meeting had a parent come and share a little bit about something. And so from that, the next morning after the board meeting, Steve, Sarah, and I were talking about what we can do maybe to improve some things. Dr. Messer sent an email that day, I think, also with some ideas, and kind of we put some things together. So we've been working on the last month just to have more information for parents and things that are more accessible to them. A couple things like the form it was located on a part of the website that maybe wasn't easy to find. So we just kind of did some things to clean some things up, bring some information all together to really share what we're doing and kind of promote what we're doing. And so I can't scroll down, this is just a picture of it, but on our website now, underneath parents and students, there is a new web page on the website called Anti-Bullying. where we've listed information about bullying, anti-bullying, what it means. We had a parent information night back in the fall concerning bullying around that time. So that information, both the Comments Live video of the presentation is up there for everyone to watch. Also, the presentation handouts are there as well. And so we just have that information there as well as some other information. We'll continue to update that and add more to it. Down at the bottom, there's a few kind of highlights of things we're already doing. Since again, we don't talk about too much, but for example, what Joe and Steve and the students went to today is a perfect example of us working on building relationships and anti-bullying. Rocks that came in, the girl experience that came in a few weeks ago is another one. So I started to put some different things up on there for positive things we're doing to work against bullying. And so I just want to encourage everyone to kind of take a look at that and find that up there. Again, there is a parent form up there that parents can fill out. We actually had our principals meeting, reviewed that form and actually updated it, made it a little bit easier to use. A lot of things you can circle and fill out, but you certainly don't have to fill out the form. If you wanted to have a private conversation with a teacher or principal, call, email. Again, the form does not have to be filled out, but it is there. If you'd like to use it, kind of help you guide you through that to submit any kind of concern you have to administration in the school district. So just wanted to highlight that. Please have everyone check that out. And then also real quick, wanted to give an update on the makerspace that we're going to be having here. The architect sent some drawings and a few things I wanted to share with the board. This again is down the hallway by Steel News Live. If you don't mind, maybe I'll stand up real quick. This is where Steel News Live currently is. This is where the old workshop is, wood shop, and also a classroom used by one of our special education teachers. The wall between those two is going to be removed. You can see the full space there. A lot of just different seating, all the furniture is movable. I have a few pictures I'll show you in a moment what that might look like. And a lot of different equipment, vinyl cutters, 3D printers, a lot of tools, woodworking, etc. Across the hall then too, that's going to be kind of your dirty space. So across the hall there's a clean space, it's kind of a computer lab, which I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. That also is a very large space and definitely one class in there, possibly multiple classes in there at one time. And then over here in the middle of the building, we took two classrooms, and because we have a special education classroom here that we took and removed them, we put them in the middle of the building, and we're renovating those classrooms as well. And with the special education classroom, there'll be this old office space that be used hopefully for, there's a couple different ideas I think, right Sarah?
Those are going to be some of our transition services. There's going to be classroom space. There's going to be workshop space there. So it's going to be a very versatile setting for our students, so we can kind of tailor the programs based on whatever needs we've got at the time.
And so what's not there now, but will be there, is a kind of a new restroom for the special education students. Also kind of a kitchenette area with washer dryer, stove, I think, and so really cool brand new space for them.
Where is that?
Right in the middle of the building. Right where the main Boys and Girls restrooms right here, down the hall here.
Yeah,
right
across from the
connected to it.
auxiliary.
That's why we had to split that area because we had to build off the pipes and the plumbing that's already there.
Okay.
The current restrooms to build a new restroom in the middle of the building. So it's going to work out very nicely. And then real quick, here's some visuals of the makerspace. You don't see the equipment or the tools or the computers in there, but this is just kind of the furniture. It's all movable, lots of storage, obviously. Students were able to move around quite a bit and do the work. And then if you're interested, just seeing a couple of the interior, designs. So obviously in the dirty space, you'll have epoxy flooring, no carpet or anything like that. And then the computer lab right now is kind of a gray and green moss pattern. It's really cool. And then here are some new interior finishes for special education classrooms, including again kitchen cabinets and laminates, solid surface countertops, sensory carpet, and then finally for back to the makerspace, some of the nice neutral colors with again pops of additional color in there, which again, it's not my cup of tea, so whatever the architects and designers come up with, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic.
Very nice.
That concludes my report.
Questions for Michael?
I don't have a question, but I really appreciate you all building the new anti-bullying webpage, because, you know, when stuff happens, you know, parents, we get flustered, or we get like, oh, this happened to my baby, so making things more centralized and easier, that kind of helps people kind of calm down and know what they can do, and what, you know, like what is bullying, what may just be like, oh, well, they called you a silly name or something, I don't know. So I think that really helps people to just be able to calm down, and they can find a resource, and, you know, so it doesn't blow up big on social media or something.
Yeah. And we'll
So
continue,
thank you.
yes, and we'll continue to add to that, and again, we're always open to when, you know, oftentimes you kind of, so much we're always working on, when someone brings something up, you can step back and say, well, can this be better, can we improve this in some way, and it's always, actually, we love doing that, because if we can make anything a little bit better, it just helps everyone in the community and students, so I appreciate all your feedback as well to the board, so thank you.
And you would just follow up on that the parent that spoke to us, that we did investigate that, and that was not truly an incident of bullying, is that not correct?
I followed up with the parent that, actually, that next couple of days, the high school administration went through the entire year's worth of all the different reports, and of course they have their own notes there. All instances that came up to make sure our numbers were correct.
So I think it's important that that's there so that people know that not everything the parent or the public thinks is bullying qualifies under the bullying by the state definition. So I think that that's important because we have always and will continue to always report those things that needed to be reported to the state. Any other questions?
I'll just make one comment that I've made recently a little bit too, is even when something is designated or tagged or flagged as a bullying instance or not, there's no difference in either the discipline or the things we do work to correct the situation or improve the situation.
Right.
So regardless of whether it's bullying or not, we still administer the appropriate, sometimes consequences. Again, regardless, whatever is appropriate is administered. And also some restorative stuff to help improve situations, relationships between people.
Any other questions? Of course, I have one more question. It's not a question. I heard you say on there about the bathrooms. So those bathrooms are going to get redone?
Not currently, but
They're not part of this since they're right next door?
We're
Where everybody's looking at
The
everybody.
bathroom is in addition to.
it's in addition to, but as far as
The vintage
current student restrooms down that hallway,
But the vintage restrooms are going to stay vintage.
Yes, for the time being.
For the time
well,
being.
for the time being, we get turned
Is it possible, maybe since we're going to already have that torn up, to make those vintage bathrooms modern?
Yeah, I can check with Chuck. I know one of the things that we've been talking about.
You know me in bathrooms, I fought to get
Yes,
bathrooms
yes,
down
and
there.
it's funny you mention
years.
that because Chuck and I have just been talking about this and some other things over the last couple of weeks, and that was one of the things that came up. And Chuck really feels as though, and we agree, that we need to get some of these restrooms here at Seal High School updated. And so whether that takes place this summer as part of this project, obviously we have to look at the cost of that, or circling back and doing that next year, it is definitely on the list, I can tell you.
Just when you said they were going to tie plumbing into that old bathroom,
Yeah.
I thought maybe it's time to, maybe the pipes will come break.
Well, it's interesting, that's one
How
of
many people are going into that bathroom?
that's one of the reasons why we located these rooms there, because it made it easier to add a restroom into the special needs classroom, because the other, of course,
But it might be more cost effective for us to
Yes.
do that now, so I think we should look at that as part of that project.
yeah, those finishes are definitely in need of updating.
It takes me many years to get bathrooms redone in this building.
Keep bringing it up, Rex, right?
How many years did I complain about that?
A long
Down by
time.
the gym.
A lot.
Huh?
A lot.
All right. Okay. I have no further questions for you. Okay. Sarah.
All right, my turn. So, big week this week because Steve had mentioned we've got our Family First night tomorrow, and then on Wednesday is our Comic Community social media presentation. Beth Schwartz and Amanda Sears, our tech integration specialists, will be presenting along with SRO Lamb and SRO Forward about things like digital citizenship and being aware of your child's digital footprint and what social media apps are out there. And I'll tell you, when I was working with them and they were kind of going through what they were thinking for this presentation, I thought I was pretty up to date. I'm not on what's out there and things. So this will be here in this space on Wednesday, starting at 6 o'clock. You can come either in person or it's also going to be on Comments Live as well. So in either case, and I will tell you, Comments Live is impressive. They come in with their staff shirts on and they set up and the kids are super professional and they're counting me down and they're like, no, like, I mean, it's just, they're directing the whole thing. And so it's an impressive thing to see for those of you that are able to stop by. So that is Wednesday, and then next month we are going to be hosting our summer activity fair. And I am excited about what this is shaping up to be. For those of you that remember, we were actually supposed to do this the first time in spring of 2020, but something happened and we weren't able to do it. And so we're bringing it back, and we reached out to the vendors that we had reached out to at the time, and them and more are interested in coming out. I just heard from the Boy Scouts of America they're actually going to be bringing an inflatable archery range. So it's going to be bring your kids, an opportunity for parents to sign up for things that are going to be going on that they can get their kids involved in the summer, but it's also going to be interactive. We'll have the playground that they can play on. There's going to be events that they can do. So that should be a good time. Hopefully it doesn't rain. Fingers crossed. It might snow. I don't know. So that is next month, and then just my monthly plug and reminder for Second Harvest. Today's the last day to register for that for this Thursday's delivery. So that concludes my report.
Questions for Sarah?
Just a comment. I'm really excited that Counselor Kathy got a hold of me and was asking
Yeah.
for business names. I thought, this is going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. Like if it pulls together the way it is in my head, like, and the way the discussion, and the guidance counselors and the social workers, we've been meeting regularly to kind of come up with plans for different things, and they reached out to Mr. DeFranco, Mr. Trunzo about getting high school kids to do face painting and just all sorts of different things. Like this could be a thing.
I know the businesses that have been contacted are really excited about it as well.
Yeah.
So and they're from all different.
All over.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about it too.
Good. Well, thank you.
Further questions or comments for Sarah? Okay, Sarah, I don't have any questions for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Abel.
I gave him all the mic.
No.
Sweet. JBS report. I was supposed to get a report today from the JBS, and I double-checked before I sat down here and started tonight that I did not get anything to update you with, because that board agenda should come out today from that perspective. But I had requested it earlier last week so that I would have it for tonight. So I don't really have a whole lot to share with you, because my goal was to share with you the statistics of the open house that was held at the end of last month, because we had talked about that. So I wanted to share with you because, again, Amherst numbers are always very impressive compared to the other 12 school districts that go out there. So I had thought I would have that for you this evening, and I don't have that. But they are all thrilled that the mask stuff has gone away and all of that stuff. I'm sure that you probably did hear that Friday we had some demonstration going on at the JBS, if you looked at the newspaper at all. It was very peaceful. It was all about the Ohio law of the gay, not using gay from that perspective. I guess it was portrayed very heavily on social media that it was wild. That is not what the administration said, that they took the handful of demonstrators in and had a meeting kind of like you had today at community college with staff there to resolve that, because even though you had some demonstrators, you all had some that didn't support it. So it was kind of a great learning experience the whole way around from that perspective. So I just thought I could share that, because I know I had seen it on social media. I didn't see it in the newspaper, but I don't always read the newspaper, so maybe some of you have seen that, so I thought I could address that. there was concerns that it would become a media deal from that perspective. But it was very peaceful and handled very well. Questions for me about the JBS? No? All right. Moving right down the agenda. We have some personnel recommendations this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Engel. I know the board's had an opportunity to review the various personnel items. I did want to draw attention to one particular item, item B there, that you will see an item for Jill Giovanazzo, our principal over at Nord. And as the board is aware, Jill's been through some tough times personally with the recent passing of her father. And she has expressed interest in moving from her principalship at Nord to a classroom teaching position over at Powers Elementary School. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to just commend Jill on the great work that she's done over the past 5 years. Jill, as the board is aware, is a very, very hard worker, committed to Amherst, has a tremendous knowledge of the teaching and learning process, is committed to giving all kids the opportunities that they need and deserve. She's done a wonderful job, with the implementation of this new math program this year, the physical appearance of the Nord building, and the lockers and the cafeteria, all those things. She has just done many, many wonderful things over these past 5 years at Nord, and I just wanted to commend her publicly. And while we're sad that she's leaving the principalship at Nord, we're thankful that she's staying here in Amherst. And certainly wish her the best as she moves into a teaching position, and she'll do a wonderful, wonderful job in the classroom. And she's so involved in our district golf outing, for example. She plays a leadership role in putting that outing together, and just going above and beyond. So again, just wanted to take this opportunity to commend Jill for her good work over these last 5 years. As far as the other items here, nothing really out of the ordinary. I know the board, you're used to seeing certain items at certain times of the year, miscellaneous personnel items here, and at this time would like to recommend approval of items 11A through 11J.
We have a motion and a second, please. Second. Motion and a second. Comments or discussions on any of those items A through J under personnel recommendations?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, when Mr. Sayers was talking about Principal Giovanazzo, how does that work, like, going from a principal to a teacher? Like, how does that, because I know it's different from other, my place of work is different. So I didn't know how that worked. Like,
In terms of she will be moving into a classroom teaching position at Powers, obviously on a different type of contract. She'll no longer be on an administrative contract. She'll be on a teacher contract, teacher salary schedule. It's really basically a simple transfer
oh, it's a transfer.
from one contract to another contract.
And that contract will be completely different. I mean, her pay and things will
Yes.
change. She won't go at that same, because where you work, sometimes your pay stays the same. Even if you go up or down, your pay stays equal. That's not true.
Right.
Moving
She's
from
actually
an,
doing a.
moving from an administrative contract
To a
to
teaching
a teaching contract with obviously different salary schedules.
And she's guaranteed a teaching position with us.
Yeah, that's correct.
If she steps down, and she knew that, I'm sure that she would be guaranteed a job. Otherwise, she'd have to resign to the start. Okay, because that's part of the negotiating part of the contract with certain criteria. Okay.
In essential level position at Powers, but we know what that position is yet.
It's yet to be determined. We actually have, as of right now, we have 2 open positions at Powers, and we haven't made a final decision on that yet. But I can say it will be at Powers.
Okay, any other questions on personnel stuff for Steve? Hearing none or seeing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gillis. Aye. Mr. Zappa.
Aye.
Dr. Messer.
Aye.
Mrs. Wackel.
Aye.
Mr. Engel.
Educational recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Ankle. Again, several different items here. Washington DC trip, it's hard to believe we're already planning trips for next school year, a wonderful thing. Special services for special needs students. I did want to draw attention to item E, kind of circling back to my update as part of my report. These are the summer, I shouldn't say the summer rec, but the allocations for all of our rec programs. And again, very much looking forward to this meeting that we have on the 30th. And I will also say that above and beyond these allocations, that oftentimes we have other projects that take place aside from or apart from the regular allocations. You know, for example, in the past we've done a light project, which is, you know, obviously with our junior high soccer field and our baseball fields over to junior high. That was handled through the rec fund. We're also working with the summer baseball and softball. This year we purchased a couple of Workmans, the utility vehicles, and kind of haul things around, and we're able to do that through rec funds as well. So just wanted the board to be aware that above and beyond the regular allocations, oftentimes there are special projects, and that's one of the reasons why we're very much looking forward to this meeting on the 30th, is to just hear about the different ideas and goals and ways that we can kind of work together and provide opportunity for kids. So it's a good thing. But I did want to provide that perspective as well. And with that, I would like to recommend approval of items 12A through 12E.
We have a motion. Second, motion and a second. Questions or comments or discussion on any of those items?
I just have, I have a question just about the summer rec funds.
Yes.
How is it determined how much each one of those gets?
Well, it's
There was
this.
some kind of a formula that you.
Well, what we did, for example, this year, the swimming and the summer theater, those amounts have been consistent for at least as long as I've been here. But again, you know, maybe it's time we change those.
Right.
Based on different needs and so forth. And then actually the summer baseball and softball allocation is a little bit less this year because of some of the other projects we're doing, like the Workmans, and one of the other things we're doing is constructing a shed over here at Nord that our summer baseball folks are going to be able to use as well. So theirs is actually, excuse me, a little bit lower than usual. And then youth football, this is actually a new allocation. We haven't had an allocation for youth football in the past that I'm aware of. So this is actually a new allocation. And then soccer, actually they had went a number of years without an allocation because of the light project. So we're kind of resuming. But again, these are base numbers where we stand as of right now, but certainly open to adjusting and changing and re-looking. And again, that's why our meeting on the 30th, I think, is so important, is to have everybody there.
What about the little cheerleaders? Is that part of the football, or that's not part of this at all?
I'm not sure if they're a part of the youth football, if they're a part of that organization, they may very well be, or if they have their own separate organization.
I think they are.
I don't know.
Is that not-
Are they a part of the
Yeah, it's all
football?
part of it. I thought they were.
So actually, this will, you know, support that program as well.
And these numbers are, as you said, are not set in stone.
Yes, this is a minimum.
These can be allocated however they need to be. And in theory, we don't even have to do anything with this because we appropriated this money at the beginning of the year. So these numbers, we just show you so that they're there because the appropriation doesn't really need to come for us, but we've always put it as part of the agenda so that everybody knows what we're giving them. So
Yeah. That's correct. That's really a transparency thing. Actually, as Amy said, it's already been allocated through our summer rec budget. We could really handle it administratively, but we place it on the agenda, again, transparency so that everyone can see what various groups are receiving, at a minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
And like with the soccer lights, I know that there's been some discussion about that. The soccer people came to us about doing the soccer, and that's why we used a chunk of that money, or the chunk of that money was used to help do the soccer lights.
Yeah, very collaborative with soccer, and as you recall, Chuck Winarski
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
very involved with that project. And
Electricians and everybody donated the time, so it did not cost us dollars to do that. So
I think that was Mr. Wolf's first year, if I remember.
Yes.
And I remember, is that correct? I think it was his first year. And we were kind of down to the 11th hour and making sure the lights were ready to go.
That project was in excess of $200,000.
It came together.
Like $250,000.
Yeah.
So I just think that's good to point out because, and what prompted that was because we wouldn't allow the soccer team to play football.
Yes.
Soccer on the football field because of, they ruined it. So that was a
Our
big
boys
issue.
did not ruin it.
Well,
Not our boys.
that's what the perception was, that,
To have a separate
to have a whole
soccer,
separate deal.
soccer
Yeah.
Worked out
complex.
very well, so.
Right.
It's great, and it's a great
And it's
place.
worked out very well,
Yeah.
I think that it works out great, so. I just think it's important that sometimes we talk about some of that stuff because.
And I
some
really think a lot
some
of
the
new
citizens don't
ideas
know
will
that.
grow out of our meeting on the 30th. And like I said, I'm just grateful that they were gracious enough to invite me and just to explore and brainstorm ideas and how we can work together. And, even though they're separate organizations from the school district, obviously we're serving the same students in the same community. So who knows what the next project will be?
Any other questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gillis.
Aye.
Dr. Messer.
Aye.
Mrs. Wackel. Mr. Zappa.
Aye.
Mr. Engel.
Business recommendations, Steve?
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Engel. First of all, I want to mention, we're going to hold off on item D, the contract with Germansville, and that's for our senior banquet. And further review of that contract, actually, there's not a price included there in terms of how much per person. So we're going to go back and take a look at that contract, and then we will bring that back to the April board meeting for your consideration. And then just a couple of other items there. Our item C is our annual service that we have for grass cutting and trimming for our non-athletic spaces. And then, as the board is aware, we have established 2 years ago kind of a rotation with our buses in terms of how many we're going to replace each year. And we were in kind of a tough spot a couple of years ago, but excuse me, with Tia's leadership and Mike Jesser, our new head mechanic, our fleet is in good shape. And we want to make sure we adhere to that plan to make sure that our fleet stays in good shape. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we've been told that it's probably going to be anywhere from 90 to 120 days before the buses arrive. So again, we want to, pending your approval, get these buses ordered and hopefully have them ready for August. With that, I'd like to recommend approval of items 13A through 13E with the exception of item D.
So we're omitting D, so we would ask 13A, B, C, and E. Motion and a second.
Who did the motion and did the second?
Second. Questions or comments on the business recommendations?
I have a question and a comment.
Sure.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to bring this up, but regarding the gifts that we're doing here, I'm just confused with what direction we want to go. But if we do decide to go forward with the gifts, I don't think it's fair for one person to bear the brunt of that cost. So I think amongst ourselves, we need to decide what we want to do here. You know,
Could
so
we,
that-
could we,
Finish this, yeah.
could we take this motion, because there's not to be a motion on that, and then we'll have a discussion about that, okay? Because that's not a business recommendation at this point in time. There's not, because we're not asking for anything there. So let's call the roll on this if there's no questions on items A, B, C, and D. Okay?
Okay. Mrs. Gillis.
Aye.
Dr. Messer. Mrs. Wackel. Mr. Zappa.
Aye.
Mr. Engel.
Now, Mr. Zappi, you have some other board business that you'd like to discuss
Yes.
now, so please feel free to discuss
I will
them.
repeat that.
Okay.
Again, I'm just confused as to the direction we want to go. And if we, as a group, we decide we want to proceed with this, that's fine. But it shouldn't bear, one person shouldn't be bearing the cost of this. So we either decide, as a group, we're going to go forward and bear that cost, or we don't do it at all. I guess I would open it up to everybody else's suggestions.
So, some of my concerns, I honestly don't know what's in the gifts, but if it's edible stuff, I would be concerned about, kids being allergic to something, and you don't know that they're allergic to, and they eat it, and not knowing it, that would be a liability on the Board of Education, so I have some concerns, when it comes to what it is that we're giving them, because I don't know, because I haven't been a part of that.
My concern is, as the treasurer, is that it's not really something that can be reimbursed by the district. It's not, it doesn't fit a proper public purpose. And that is the overarching thing for all of our expenditures, am I correct? See, the overarching tenet of school district expenditures is that it fits a proper public purpose, and it's not a proper public purpose in any way, shape, or form.
I don't feel like it's I'm not trying to force it. I had no expectation of anyone taking it from any of the budget, of any line item from the budget. It was just simply as a board member, thanking the people who come out and give their time to come to the meeting, to be recognized, and just say, just another way to say thank you. Like the students specifically who come out. I agree that I've been concerned occasionally with food gifts, but also it seems to be that parents are with the students that are coming here, so that I would think if they are receiving a food gift with a parent, that they, as a combination, would know I can't have this, whether we're going to pass on it. It was just one more way to show appreciation for those students that are donating their talents and time and energy to us. Board doesn't want to do it, and that is my nature to gift people, so I'm going to gift whenever there's an opportunity. So I totally understand though that I'm not wanting to take money from anything. That's not the goal here. It was simply from me personally as a board member, and then from the board itself, because I'm not a board member without the rest of you. So, if it's decided that I do it, then I do it.
And I think I think we signed that paper tonight, so I guess to your point, Morgan, with the giving back, with the thank note, did we have that?
That's for staff, that's, yeah.
But I thought weren't we gonna send that to some of the people as well, the teams and stuff?
Well, that was a topic because it was brought up that after we see folks that come to the good news report, whether it's staff or whether it's an outstanding student who's state qualified or done some of that we would send them a card thanking them for attending the board meeting, congratulating them, and that would be signed by all of the Board of Education, so that we have recognized them as an individual for their accomplishment. And I think that that's very appropriate, and I think there's a sample of that card available that it would be very simple, and it would be use the signature that you signed tonight, the paper you signed tonight, would be used as an electronic signature so that it will look like your signature on every card that you go out. It's just a simple card, but it does recognize that the board did appreciate the student for their accomplishments from that time. The other thing that I would have thoughts about is if, for example, someone that was on a team couldn't be here tonight and they didn't get something, this way everybody will get something because it will go out electronically to that person and we can know who's on that team from the rosters or from whatever. So I just think that it's something to consider. It's not, if we decide that we want to give a gift, then I think we have to be prepared that it's going to come from our own personal dollars, which I don't think anybody at this table would have an issue with. But is that something we want to do? Because I personally don't think that a $40 million business would recognize people at a board meeting from that perspective. And being one of the largest employers, one of the most generating businesses in Amherst, Ohio, our board meeting is really a time to conduct board business. And we do take time to recognize people and recognize the community for that. but I just don't think it's the appropriate place sometimes for us, for the board to give a gift like that. We do have a recognition program where we do recognize people with crystal apples. I don't know whether we're moving forward with that program this spring or not. Sarah, Mike, who's spearheading that from that perspective?
Well, usually it was the board.
Well, the board did not, but normally
Some
we got some guidance from you
nomination,
folks from that perspective because they had to be nominated by a student or a faculty or staff member as well. I mean, from that perspective. So I think that we do have some programs in place for that. So, I mean, it's the pleasure of whatever we all decide to do. So, what is everyone's pleasure?
Well, I have to agree with you. I mean, if the student is sick and they're on the team and they can't come, are we gonna go chase them and give them a goodie bag too because they weren't able to come? I mean, I think that I would feel left out if I was sick and I couldn't come to be with my team that day and everybody else got a treat and I didn't because I couldn't be there for whatever reason, whether I'm sick or I had an appointment or whatever happened. I mean, I would feel bad that somebody would get left out. And that's just my personal opinion.
I feel volunteer that I was happy to spearhead the whole thing, so I would be happy to get a roster list and make things up. So if that's the decision, I don't mind doing all those things. But if that's not the decision, you can stick with the card.
I think the card.
Like first graders that come, you give them a card and that's nice. But also if you give them a Rice Krispie treat, that's nicer to a first grader.
It is, but I don't know. Part of me feels like, I mean, they're coming and we're recognizing them. I mean, I don't know that they really expect to get a gift. Not that you're saying
It's
that they
not
are.
that, yeah, not about expecting anything.
Right.
It's just.
I could go either way, but I think for simplicity, the card, you know, I mean, we all have a lot to do. I mean, that's, I just think somewhere down the road it's going to get overwhelming. And the card's a great idea. Everybody gets one, and there's nobody can probably foul or I didn't get mine. So, but again, I'm open. I just prefer the card, I guess.
Yeah, I see the value of a personal touch, but we gotta, think in logistics as well, so.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It could go either way, right.
It's a tough one for sure.
There's good and bad both.
Well, and
Value
And I don't think that, I don't want you to do that on your own, coming from the board from that perspective. I mean, that's, because, as you said, we are united groups, we have to come to a consensus, and I think it's good that we're having this discussion. So, do we, I think so that it's a public record and it's all there. Does someone want to make a motion one way or the other of what we're going to do?
Motion when it's hard, since I was the one who started this.
I'll second.
We have a motion that we will just present the card, that we will not present any type of token or gift. Is that correct? Get to your motion on the floor. Is there further discussion on that?
You have a big heart.
Yes, you have a great big heart.
You do,
and
seriously.
We admire that,
Yes.
but at the same time, we have to look out for the best interest of the whole district from that perspective. You'll learn that there's been people that wanted to do things we've had to say no to because of a liability issue that comes back to haunt us as well. And, you don't think about that, but if a child choked on a piece of that candy that we gave to them because their parent wasn't here, it sets up a whole different realm of possibilities for us. So I'm just trying to protect this as well as recognize the achievements of our staff and students.
Well, I think we need to check on those apples. Look, I don't know how many we have left. And I know they were at the board. Do you have them?
We have the crystal apples at the board,
Okay.
and those were different, that's a different thing, but then the comet award that they do here at the high school, I don't know which one of the counselors, somebody was in charge, Bob Harpula used to be in charge,
Correct.
he's at the junior high.
I think I went to, I don't remember.
So that has always been done at the high school since I've been here.
Okay.
But the crystal apples, we get nominations into the board office, and then Mike, we go, I still have a spreadsheet that goes way back to, I don't know how far back.
So my question would be is how do we let
Could
people
we,
know that we do it?
let's talk
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
Let's take the motion that we
Okay.
have on the table, and then
Okay.
we can discuss the,
Okay.
the other award.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Wackels. Dr. Messer. Mrs. Gillis.
Aye.
Mr. Zadlow.
Aye.
And Mr. Engel.
Now we can have a discussion,
Okay.
Teresa,
I'm just-
about the other
I'm
awards.
just wondering, like, how do people know? I mean, does something go out to the staff or something, or to parents about the Crystal Apple, or to the students? I don't know.
We'll say some of the people that have received their level didn't know what it was until they got a thing saying, hey, you won this thing. They're like, I don't have any idea.
That's what I'm asking, like, maybe we can
Usually
give
there's
it
a
to parents?
nomination form that goes out in, is it early May or late April? So
We
it's
said
for the
that
May
April
board.
because it's.
We usually present those at the May
At the May
board
board meeting. So
That's
they usually go out right around the same time that scholarship applications are due. So that would be like March, early April.
Correct.
So that their time to be reviewed, so that they would come back. Because they're reviewed by you guys from that perspective. Because they're nominated by basically staff.
Yes, so it goes out to all the
Because
staff.
the staff it isn't from the public per se, because the staff's recognizing people who've done things to benefit the
Okay.
school district, live in
Volunteers,
volunteers.
basically volunteers.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Somebody just,
Somebody
I mean,
needs to-
usually it was Val and I. Val and I are the ones that took care of that, but I don't know how many apples we have, I don't know, like, those sorts of things. So
The
somebody-
volunteer Crystal Apples have always done, Mike would send out an email, we would have, the staff had an amount of time and the deadline to return their nominations. Then they were gone over mostly by Mike, I don't know, Mike and Sarah? Mostly Mike, you know, and.
Sarah, you know, so you're smiling, so just speak up.
And then, they would award a certain number of them each year, like,
Do you know how many we have?
there's usually 3 given each year.
Okay.
Sometimes there was more, just depended on what came in.
And one
I
should
don't
be
know,
a parent.
pardon?
Doesn't one go to a parent?
These are for parent volunteers, or groups of volunteers.
Okay, so
They are
then the
not
comment
anything to do with,
award is the one that,
the common award is what you and Val took care of.
okay, so how do we know how many award, so I need to call somebody at the high school?
Yes,
I'll do it, okay. I'll call and find out.
but the Crystal
So
Apples were for
Sarah,
volunteers.
you're going to spearhead that. Okay, we're just going to appoint Sarah to spearhead that. Because I'm sure Mike will jump in, but I think Sarah knows more than she's saying right now also, just by the look on your face.
This is just my face.
And well, and that's what I'm saying, we can bring in the PR person to get that word out from that perspective of what the crystal, I say golden apple, because somewhere else has a golden
We do have golden apples that have been in that office since before I came.
That's what I'm saying, so there's a lot of apples
There's a lot of
floating around, okay? But the last one has been crystal apples, which is the volunteers, correct? So, yes.
So Teresa's working on that.
I was gonna say, is the common award then that goes to the high school, or is that
Right.
the same idea as like your scholarship dinner, or like is it for a senior, or is it just for any student?
The common award, I think they nominate a teacher.
Oh,
It's a
teacher.
teacher
And they get it, we present it
at the
at the
board
board
meeting.
meeting.
It's, because you have a volunteer, so it's like a teacher of the, not year, but recognition for accomplishments or
Teachers,
something. that
the
they
kids will write a thing about the student, about the teacher.
So there's a committee for us that does that, and who's that committee?
Morgan and I.
Okay, so you two are on that, okay?
And I would also like to add too, while we're having this conversation, that I have to say Rachel Mellon is doing a wonderful job. We talked about recognizing the neat things that are happening with our students, our staff, our community, and she's just doing a wonderful job. We're getting great feedback from the community. I've heard from a number of people just how much they appreciate the work that she's doing. She was at the Oregon County Community College today for the student leadership, snapping some pictures, talking with students. So that's obviously something that we've really focused on, is making sure we're recognizing, drawing attention to the great things that are happening. And I think we're seeing that ramp up as well. And certainly we want to continue that moving forward.
And I think it's been very nice to see the consistency in every post.
Yes,
The-
yes.
The same
Yeah.
thing, the same logo, the same corner, the same
Yes.
thing is there. So you automatically know that Amherst is doing something
Yeah.
from that perspective, and it's not random that
Sally posted something, Jim posted something, and it's all different. Not that we didn't appreciate Sam and Joe posting, but I think it's great that everything is through one person that has a consistent look, which brings unity to the district. The other thing I think we should chat about this evening. Okay, well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You go first.
The other thing is, I know that there was some concern about last minute things added to the agenda today. And typically, it's always been that if it's a regular routine hiring or something, that we were just going to add that because it wasn't ready to be on the agenda when it came out. So therefore, we added it today because the paperwork was done. It never involves usually any large amount of dollars or anything that we haven't had time to review or think about. So today, I think there was a couple of substitute teachers on there, if I recall.
Yes.
Which is nothing that the board is really going to take any action on as well. So I just think that, we know that it's a 72-hour, but we try to keep it as current as we possibly can, because at the same token, we don't want that to wait for another month to get that on there. So I just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the way we do that. I've done that.
I'm glad you shared that, and we actually went back and double checked, and we had, and Amy, I know, can speak to the financial piece of it, but I know we had a resignation, which obviously we don't have any control over when resignations come in. We had a phys ed teacher that accepted the position on Friday, and then we had 3 substitutes. And so those items, obviously, we think they're very straightforward items, to your point, Mr. Engel, that we think it's more important to have them on the agenda this month as opposed to waiting an entire another month. Obviously, subs, for example, we want to get them working as soon as possible. Teacher, we don't want to lose a teacher from another district if we can get them a contract to another district, if we can get them hired right away. So that's kind of the guide that we use. If it's a very simple, straightforward item that develops after the draft agenda goes out, we'll go ahead and add them. But if not, we can wait till the next agenda.
Okay, so I'm gonna speak on that. So everybody know I'm new, everybody keeps reminding me I'm new, I need to learn, I don't know a lot of stuff. So that's why I commented on that, because it's like, I wanna do my due diligence to learn as much as I can, whenever I have free time, I'm, on the OSBA website, all, Department of Education, all this stuff. So that's just for me to know that I'm doing my due diligence to really know what I'm looking at and reading.
And that's why I thought it was important that we have that discussion, because I read your email, and I read your email, and I thought, let's just talk about that, because we understand. Some of us take it for granted because we've done it for X number of years, okay? So we kind of know that. But when you have questions like that, absolutely, let us know. Let Steve know, or let myself know, or Amy know, or Mike, or Sarah, okay? And we'll be glad to tell you the way it's been. Not that it has to be that way, but if you recall, at the organizational meeting, we gave power to Steve to accept resignations the day they were given to us, because the reason that is because at one point in time there was a resignation tendered, and then they wanted to renege on the resignation, and it was a legal battle almost to that perspective. So that's why we give the administration the authority to accept and do things administratively until the board meets, which is how any board would operate from that perspective. So I just think that those are important things. And like substitute teachers, we aren't going to interview those people, we don't have any say in that. So let's get them before they go to Keystone or wherever they might want it. They're probably on Keystone's list anyway, from that perspective. So I just think that that's important. So I think it's important that when we have those questions, we talk about them and we get them resolved. Not resolved, but
I do want to say, Mr. Sayers and everyone's been great answering questions, and Ms. Amy's been very great with training and answering questions. So, that's how I've been able to really kind of get up to speed with some stuff. But sometimes like, oh wow, there's all these numbers and stuff, and I like to go through numbers and whatever,
there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah,
And it takes a long time to understand. I mean, I'm surprised someone didn't ask about when she was using the term, I don't remember what term we use, but when they give us our money, we don't use pay us money, we use some other advances or whatever. Because at one point in time I remember saying, what do you mean they advance you money? Well, they're not advancing it to us, they're really paying it to us because they've collected it, so now they're giving it to us because it was what was collected from the school taxes that everybody votes on from that perspective. So I think that that's important, that, you know, someone says,
In
what do
fact-
you mean they advance
in
you money,
fact-
you have to give it back? No, we don't have to give it back.
At the organization meeting in January, the board approves a standing resolution for the treasurer to request from the county auditor advances up to 90% of what they've collected for us. So the term advance is something that you will hear me say multiple times during the year. As far as the financials not being presented to the board last Friday, 72 hours before the meeting, they were prepared. I will say that my office was shorthanded all last week, and Miss Janet actually took a vacation day on Friday. And so the financials were there, they were prepared, they were ready, they had the logo on them. I probably should have emailed them to the board. They didn't have the, in the upper right-hand corner, the exhibit number, et cetera, they weren't ready as far as I was concerned. So Janet is going to show me how to load them into the Google Drive. I'm not a Google person. Treasurers use Excel and Microsoft. I don't use Google. So I have to learn how to dump those into the drive. And I spent like 10 minutes trying to drag them over into the drive, and I wasn't able to do it. So, but another thing is there's an expectation that I will always have February's financials on the March board meeting. It doesn't have to be done that way. It's not like that in every district. We have a very, very short window for our month-end close. We rarely spend more than 2 days on the close. So I like to get those before the board and have them approved. And most everything that you see on the treasurer's recommendations of the board are repetitive. There's the meeting minutes, the approval of the minutes. There are the approval of the prior month's financials. There's approval of revisions to appropriations. And there are donations. You may see appropriation changes. You might see fund-to-fund transfers. You might see a few other things, but it's kind of the same 5 or so things you see from the treasurer each month. You'll see that as you get more experience, right? And by all means, shoot me a question.
I did today, bunch of them.
I did.
Yeah, I feel bad shooting questions too, like within, 24 hours or something.
I do.
Because I feel you guys need time to.
She called me on that meeting.
Oh.
I had questions.
Yeah, so, since I have so many questions and sometimes the questions are very involved, I want to make sure you all have time to answer as well, because you've been great answering. So that's just my whole thing. I'm not trying to be a hard case. I'm trying to do my due diligence, and I want to give you all the time.
Well, she should know the answers just like that.
Okay, Morgan, you had something?
It's exactly the same topic, and I don't know if this is like a formal vote that needs to be taken, or just a habit we could change. Is there any way we could make the agenda, the draft agenda come out sooner, so that we have time to look at it, and then it can be publicly posted, like on Friday or something before you leave for the weekend, just because then I know it's dropping essentially like 3 hours before the meeting, not just focusing on a very long time. Plus, on our behalf, if we had it on Wednesday, for example, then we could look over it, and then we're not shooting people questions all weekend long about it, and it could just be like, okay, we looked at it, and I understand totally that like, then the last minute things are still gonna come up, and that's just the way of life, does not happen. But is there any way we can adjust it so that we are getting everything just kind of shifted up a couple days?
As I recall, Janet, we actually I think we used to send it out on Friday, correct?
We used to send it out on Friday.
We moved it up a
Now I'm
day
doing it Thursday.
to Thursday, just
It's
to
all in the
provide.
Google Drive, is it not?
Which,
I
the
have-
question is,
we're
can
gonna
it all be put in there, so like, on Wednesday before the meeting, for example, that's when everything's uploaded?
We
and
haven't even met for agenda review with the president yet.
Right, I mean, we usually meet on Thursday, and then usually you get it by Thursday afternoon.
Right.
Or
The draft.
after a goal. And I don't know whether you're going to be ready to do that on, say, Tuesday, so that it'll be out there. That's not my call. from that perspective, because there are still times that when I leave, when the president leaves, after that review, there's things that are gonna happen, and that's why you get, so personally, I think that I would have as much as we possibly can, like we're doing, and have a few things, as opposed to have a short agenda, and then have 15 additional items that's gonna come out on Friday from that perspective. That's just my thoughts of looking at it, because
The goal is after you meet on Thursday, we send the draft out Thursday before the end of the day, and then by Friday before the end of the day, it is sent out with as much, as final as possible. There are always here and there.
Yeah, Thursday, we normally do that on Thursday.
Right, but we would generally, we could send the final part out on Friday, if like we used to, if we have what we need.
sure, if it's ready to go,
It would still go
It would
out
be
on
there.
Friday, like
And
I would
typically,
have.
like, to your point, Mr. Engel, the items that are added last minute would be very straightforward items that, hey, we want to get these substitutes hired so they can start working for us. Not, complicated contracts that involve a lot of different, scenarios and large sums of money, that type of thing. We could probably do it a little bit earlier, but the problem is it's less accurate. Then the draft is, for example, this week, the draft is probably 90 to 95% accurate by Thursday afternoon, with the exception of these handful of items. The earlier we make that, then the less accurate the draft will be.
because there's times when I just have to go back and say, we gotta check on this, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. You have a very short time to do that, but that's good, because when you request the item agendas, for example, the contract with journalists, that came,
Yes.
when everybody read that, it still didn't get caught because there was not a dollar in there, and that's, So, again, I don't care when we get the agenda,
Does that leave you much time though? That would be the question.
It's tight.
It's
It's
it's very tight from a
If
financial
the board
standpoint, and you
meeting
better realize
is the
that,
9th or the 10th business day of the month, that's a lot to do.
it's,
We could always put off the financial until the following month though, but that puts us, in my estimation, a month behind.
behind, right?
So,
We know it's a very short turnaround time for
It
the
is.
financial statements from that perspective, because in most businesses, they don't come out until the 15th, the 17th, or the 20th of the month from that perspective, just because of the turnaround time. So, and we've always had pressure on the treasurer's office to turn that around by the board meeting if it falls on the 10th, or if it falls on the 12th, or if it falls on the 18th, and we've always had that. So I don't think that we want to do that, because I don't think we want to be talking about financials that we're already over and done, and we're almost done with them. That's my own personal opinion on that, because we like to know where we are and what we're doing from that financial standpoint. Mark, Amanda, Morgan, what do you all think?
Well, it doesn't make it, if you can't do it without the financials, I don't think that you wanna do it without that. If you wanna go at the same time.
Yeah, I think that we should keep the financials current to the month that we're in, personally.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on that.
So,
We've never been a month.
but we'll see if we can't get the final agenda out on that Friday. And the administration knows they're going to get questions on the weekend or
most
whatever.
typically it is
Yeah.
final.
It is usually final and posted. Usually we get a text or email saying that it's out there.
And
One of
This month was just a fluke thing.
Right.
It was fun, right?
Yeah, Janet was there on Friday.
And one of the things that happens too is the nice thing about posting the final agenda on the day of the meeting is it's like 99.9% accurate. If we were to post something on Friday, and then, for example, let's say a resignation came in first thing Monday morning, which has happened before, then now you have an agenda that's out there that is not final. So that's one of the reasons why we've waited until like noon, 1 o'clock on the day of the meeting, because once we post it, it's pretty much not going to change unless an item is deleted, like we had tonight with Journals Villa. That's the danger of posting it publicly on the website Friday, because something could happen on Monday morning.
And if you notice, we very seldom have an addendum to our agenda.
Yes, that's correct.
Because we post
Yes,
the actual final agenda.
yes.
JBS, invariably, we have 3 or 4 addendums that come out, which
After the
distraughts
agenda,
some of
yes.
the board members,
Yes.
because they're like, why do these things come as addendums, but it's some of those exact issues? And we said, because you want this so early that, I think last month we had 4 addendums. So then people are shuffling this real agenda to the addendum, and they don't know what's been removed, what's been added, what's done. So I just think it's confusing, because if you look here, very seldom do we ever have an addendum.
Right.
In this board. So,
It's a good thought, though.
so is the general consensus we're going to leave it as it is?
I think you almost have to, because if you have a,
Policy.
Yeah.
Policy.
Yeah. So we're going to just leave it at status quo. Okay? Everybody's in agreement?
And we will do our very best to have as much as we possibly can on the draft agenda. Obviously, we want to keep any last minute things to amend.
because I'm not really good with numbers, like, you're really good with numbers, I did that, but I like to look at those too, so it was just unusual, but normally we have the time to look at them, and I appreciate all the reports that you do as well, because I like to read them, for sure.
Inquiring.
You're not going to get a treat.
There's gotta be an extra one.
Scooby snack.
No, she went into the treat room. The treasurer. Is there any other things that we would like to discuss tonight at the Amherst Board of Education meeting for March? If not, we entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion.
And a second? Second? And could we call the roll, please?
Mrs. Gillis,
Aye.
Mrs. Buckles, Dr. Messer,
Aye.
Mr. Zappa, Mr. Engel.
Thank you all.